Welcome back to Pixel Peek, your go-to video game news show on App TV. It's Season 7 and whoa, we're back in studio. Crazy year we had online, huh? But now we're back to the basics with a new crew. Finally, and we'll be able to have more special episodes this season with all of us. That sounds so fun. What are we up to this week? We have a lot of interesting stuff to cover this week, like new interesting Nintendo Switch releases, as well as the global chip shortage. We also have one of our lovely producers, Haley Cypher, reviewing Psychonauts 2 for us. And to close out the show, we're talking with Zach White about the PlayStation Showcase and what to expect with game releases. That sounds great. What are we waiting on? Let's get going. According to Bloomberg, the global chip shortage, which affects everything from graphics cards to gaming consoles, will continue for at least another year. Toshiba, a primary manufacturer, has stated that, quote, the supply of chips will remain very tight until at least September next year. In some cases, we may find some customers not being fully served until 2023, end quote. With only a handful of companies able to make these chips, the high demand for PlayStation 5s, PC parts, and other electronics has caused the situation to become a crisis. High demand is not the only thing affecting the situation. A rise in COVID-19 cases, natural disasters, and political tensions can all take a toll on supply. While Sony had previously claimed it could produce over 14 million PS5s, Bloomberg reports that production has fallen behind that of PS4. Nintendo, perhaps one of the largest gaming companies in the world, is also having a hard time meeting demands for the Switch. They are still planning to release their new Switch OLED come October 8th, but with the high demands, they will be very hard to get. Quote, if you are planning to buy the Switch OLED model, be sure to get the first batch, wrote Bloomberg's Takashi Makazuki. We could be wrong, but we might see an even bigger console shortage than when the PlayStation 5 first came out. We will be sure to follow the chip shortage closely and update with anything new. Big news for Nintendo Switch Online subscribers. According to sources from Eurogamer, it appears that both Game Boy and Game Boy Color titles will be coming to the Nintendo Switch Online service. This service allows for subscribers to be given exclusive access to a curated library of retro games from Nintendo's past. Up until now, Nintendo Switch Online has only offered NES and Super NES titles to its subscribers, with the NES having about 80 titles and the Super NES having about 50 titles. Although this is a lot of games for Switch Online subscribers to enjoy, some have been itching for more consoles to be added to the service, and it seems that they are getting their wishes with the addition of Game Boy and Game Boy Color titles. According to a data mine conducted back in January of 2019, codenames for 2 additional consoles were found within the code for the NES Switch application, those being Hyoko and Count. Nobody knew what those codenames could be referred to, but both Game Boy and Nintendo 64 were speculated. At this time, there has been no official confirmation from Nintendo about the inclusion of additional consoles to the Switch Online service, but we will keep our eyes peeled for any official statements from Nintendo. Exciting news for party game fans. A classic family-friendly game is making a big return to the Nintendo Switch. Big Brain Academy, described as the Super Smash Bros. For the mind, is set to release on December 3rd, 2021, and will cost only $30. Big Brain Academy is described by Nintendo as a party game, letting players go up against friends and family in 5 testing categories: identify, memorize, analyze, compute, and visualize. When experiencing the multiplayer game mode, academic levels can be individually customized to make it fair for players across the board. For example, kids can even the playing field against their parents. Besides being a fun party game, Big Brain Academy also has a single-player game mode. Daily drills are offered as a way for players to increase their skills before playing against other players. One other cool part about Big Brain Academy's single-player mode is that you can download your friends' data and battle against them in a Ghost offline mode. Of course, with the Nintendo Switch being very portable-friendly, the game is able to play very well in handheld mode, with each Joy-Con acting as single controllers and touchscreen coming into play. Big Brain Academy for the Switch was originally released in 2019, but unfortunately never available in North America. We look forward to the many memories that will be made with a new Switch party game, and possibly even a Big Brain Academy special episode in the future. Due to come out later this year, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl is one of the most highly anticipated games in recent memory. One big question that remains for those following the game is which of Nickelodeon's beloved characters will make the cut for the game's roster. While we don't know the entirety of the roster, we can confirm a couple of characters due to a leak of the game's cover art on the Nintendo Switch eShop. The box art shows avatars Aang and Korra, as well as Ren and Stimpy from their self-titled cult classic. In addition, the character CatDog can also be seen. With these new additions, the roster is now up to 20 characters. Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl clearly has taken inspiration from Nintendo's Super Smash Bros. Series, so it's possible that there will be unlockable characters as well as DLC characters, which are both aspects that are a part of the Smash Bros. Series. Either way, we hope to see our favorite characters duke it out later this year.
Hello everyone! This week I got the chance to dive into the amazing world of Psychonauts 2, platform adventure game. This is the long-awaited sequel to Double Fine Productions' beloved Psychonauts, released in 2005. Prior to playing this, I briefly revisited the game, and while I loved it, I was definitely excited to see the improvements that would come with the sequel. The debut trailer for this game came out in 2015, and many delays followed, so there was a lot to be desired. In the first game, the story follows Rasputin, a young psychic and aspiring psychonaut. He runs away from his family to attend a summer camp with other psychic kids, and a lot happens there. Then, in 2017, we received Psychonauts and the Rhombus of Ruin in VR, which connects the two. Now, here we are at the sequel, picking up where we left off, just 3 days after the previous game. We see a nice recap scene getting us up to speed of what has happened up until now. Then you're off to find the mole that is infiltrating the Psychonauts, whose plan is to bring back villain Maligula from the dead. In the first game, Raz was believed to have become an official Psychonauts, but my spirits were a little let down when Agent Forsyth stuck an intern pin on him upon arriving at the headquarters. Something that I love about this game is that it is refreshing and new. There aren't really many games like this creation. It is unique and its own thing. I love that even if you haven't played any of the other games, one can thoroughly enjoy this game. Like I mentioned, the recap scene at the beginning does the job. There was so much care put into the crafting of each world or character, you would be hard-pressed to find no fun here. They built a huge, beautiful world here. There is even an appearance from Jack Black. If you did play the first Psychonauts, though, you're going to be fulfilled. It is highly comparable to the original, but better, I think. It takes a lot to finish the game. There are endless amounts of collectibles, nuggets of wisdom, figments, the emotional baggage, and their tags. There are a lot. If you're the type to do everything to reach that 100%, there will be some satisfaction there. And some irritation. Focusing on the story, I found it engaging and entertaining. It did a good job of steering you where to go next, and there is always somewhere new and interesting next. Rasputin's family catches up to him, and we get to meet the entire circus family. There's a level in Bull's Brain where you're racing the clock on a game show. There is a mini section where you're traveling through a Plinko game board. The soundtrack was something to appreciate here, as well as the voice acting was something else. I would fall a lot, I was a little too careless, and Raz has so many different screams. I also loved running into the other kids, the interns. They built up their characters well. I was interested in them. I liked how there were offbeat characters to talk to, but you couldn't talk to every person you ran into and waste your time on unimportant dialogue. The dialogue that was in the game was very well written, which was expected and delivered. The game was funny, like the last, and also brought up topics of mental health. In the game, you often enter the mind of a character. We were trying to break the association between risk and death in Hollis's brain at one point. In another, we go into Bob's brain, an alcoholic, and we get to see how he got to that point. The story reveals a lot about what is going on in a character's brain. During combat within a brain, you can encounter doubts, regrets, bad moods, and more. The combat was really intuitive too, I think, as someone that isn't the best at it. I had a lot of fun with the psychic abilities. There are 9 of them that are available over time. Throwing objects at enemies with telekinesis was great, especially when fighting a judge and you can use his gavel against him. The Psy Blasts were pretty powerful too. You're able to use 5 before waiting for a cooldown period. The way that you use the powers together to defeat different enemies is super satisfying to figure out. Combat with enemies at times got hard though. Your health can run out quickly if you're not really careful. In about every battle there were health packs you could find, but sometimes when fighting bosses you're really cutting it. Thankfully the save points in this game are pretty forgiving, for example when you miss a jump. The controls in this game were heavily improved from the last, though. I played this game on PC and it was pretty nice. Definitely having just revisited the last, the first game was almost impossible to navigate on a keyboard. I did pull out my Xbox controller to try it, and because personal preference, and I found it was smooth. I think throughout playing I found a few small glitches. One during the first boss fight, I got caught in between stacks of poker chips in an area I was supposed to jump on. ultimately falling to my death. Nothing major, and I see patches coming out often, one on the 9th and one on the 2nd of this month. In the game, you're able to upgrade your carrying capacity through the shop and buy healing items, and pins that can improve your psychic powers, which can be quite expensive, but the currency, Cytanium, isn't hard to find. You can find your pins and badges in your mission journal along with your objectives. In the game settings, you are also able to toggle a feature that allows you to receive no fall damage. There is also an invincibility mode here, and I think that the accessibility is really important if someone wants to enjoy the game that way. Double Fine even went onto Twitter to post, if you beat Psychonauts 2 with the invincibility toggle on, you still beat P2. Based on what I have experienced and talked about thus far, I would give this game a top-of-the-mountain rating. Psychonauts 2 is a charming, funny, and quirky tale that was an absolute joy to play through.
After the PlayStation Showcase, we have a few questions about future games and new releases. Here to talk with us this week is Zach White. Thank you for joining us, Zach.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Of course. Well, starting off, we'd like to ask, why is there a Nordic and Scandinavian theme for the new God of War?
Well, you know, the previous God of War for PlayStation 4 was great. I personally played it through completely on 2 separate occasions. With the new God of War, we're actually seeing a lean more towards Atreus wielding the reins for the main storyline. The reason for this new Nordic theme also is because Atreus wants to discover the path of what it really means to be Loki. Obviously, if you have Loki in the picture, Thor will be there too. A familiar antagonist from the previous God of War, Freya, will also be making another appearance, and it should definitely be another incredible experience to unpack.
Wow, thank you for that breakdown. We look forward to seeing that. For the new Spider-Man 2, though, why are Miles Morales and Peter Parker teaming up?
Well, from what I can understand, after watching the very brief teaser trailer for this new game, it can only mean that we'll be seeing Venom. Insomniac Games, an amazing company who created the first Spider-Man, has confirmed that the voice actors for Peter and Miles will be returning. Along with this, they have confirmed that the voice actor of Candyman will be voicing Venom. Personally, I have really high expectations for this game, seeing as the first one is one of my favorite PlayStation exclusives of all time. With that being said, very little information, unfortunately, for this game has come out yet, seeing as the release date is not for another 2 years. So only time will tell what more information will be revealed.
Wow, 2 years. We're going to have to look into that more later. Well, for now, for the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, what new features are you most eager for?
Now, I cannot speak for Star Wars as a whole because unfortunately I was never really the biggest fan of Star Wars. But from what I can say is, as a kid, I did definitely spend many nights playing this game on the original Xbox back in the day. In terms of new features, I'm not really sure what there will be, but I know fans will be excited just to have this game again. But for Sony though, having it launch as a PlayStation exclusive on the PS5 is a big win for us in my book.
Wow, that's actually really awesome. And another question is, why is Wolverine being added to the Marvel series?
Well, I actually have big hopes for this game in the future. One of the biggest things that stuck out to me when I first heard about this game is that it's being developed by Insomniac Games. This is definitely giving me almost certain high hopes that the gameplay experience will be amazing and possibly very similar to how Spider-Man feels. Wolverine has always been one of my favorite characters, seeing as he seems to be one of the most quote-unquote normal of the hero bunch in terms of, you know, crazy superpowers and whatnot. Well, I may not be the biggest fan of superheroes in general, but I can promise you one thing, that this will be a great game. Not to mention, the company has said that they want to give it that Insomniac spirit.
Wow, that is super interesting. As for our next question, is there any indication when the Project Eve game is scheduled to be released?
Well, Project Eve, it's one of those games that I feel we may be anticipating for a while. With how stunning the performance and storyline seems to look, we may be expecting this one, you know, when it comes to similar release dates like Spider-Man, which is 2023. PlayStation exclusives are always hard to predict, and for some reason they have a history of delays. But something tells me that Sony is really wanting to step up their game with PS5 exclusives, so Project Eve will be one that's worth the wait.
Wow, I hope that's honestly the case. Finally, we would like to ask, given how much Grand Theft Auto 6 has been pushed back for releases, do you think fans will still be hyped for when the game releases or simply be uninterested?
Well, personally, as a big fan of the Grand Theft Auto series, I think fans will be very hyped for the release of Grand Theft Auto 6. I know personally I'm holding on to some hopes that it will feature a very large map, like much bigger than the current map of Grand Theft Auto 5. So basically, to answer the question, yeah, fans are definitely going to be excited for it and probably lined up outside of GameStop if they're hopefully open.
That's definitely the answer we want to hear. Well, that's all we've got for this week's analysis, so me and Sydney will wrap up our first episode of the season. That's all for our first episode of Season 7. How is it being a host, Sarah? Pretty good. I could get used to this. I said the same thing. Well, we'll be back here soon since we have episodes coming out every other week. You can also follow us on social media to get news and extra content between episodes. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at PixelPeakAppTV. Kicking off Season 7 wouldn't have been possible without our amazing crew. Thanks to our producers Elise Taylor, Haley Cypher, Christina Gizzi, and Tomas Delgado. Not to mention our writers Zach White and Jackson Call. Awesome job as always. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next episode.
Ryan Little.